Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's council meeting. City of Anamosa City Council Agenda, regular session, Monday, October 24th, 2022, 6 p.m. Anamosa Library and Learning Center. 1.0 roll call.
Crump,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Tukin,
Here.
Zumba,
Here.
Stout,
Here.
Gombert,
We have 5 council members present in chambers and 1 who is with us via Zoom. 2.0 Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Three point zero approval of agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Who second? A motion by Rich, second by Jeff. In council discussion on the agenda before us this evening. Brandon, would you conduct a roll vote, please?
Smith,
Yes.
Tukin,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Gombert,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimously. 4.0 motion to approve the minutes from the following meetings. 4.1 September 12th, 2022, regular council meeting amended.
I can give you a quick background on 4.1 and 4.2. 4.1 is when we had the individual in here for the CDBG funds. He has very detailed minutes for what was discussed here, and they're required to have that in the minutes that are approved by council in order to have the funding. We didn't have that detailed minutes in the first approved one. We just did what everybody voted on it. So that's the first amendment. The second one is we had up in the top area of the description of the minutes, somebody wasn't here, but then they voted, so we had to fix. They're here and they're not here, so we had to get that fixed. So that's the only amendment, is we're adding CDBG discussion for the minutes and then updating who was and was not here. And then the October 10th is just a regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alan, second by Rich. Council discussion on the motion. Brandon?
Tukin,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Gombert,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Motion to approve the amended minutes carried unanimously. 4.2 September 26th, 2022, regular council meeting amended. Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alan, second by Rich. Council discussion. Brandon, please.
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Gombert,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Tukin,
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes with amendments carried unanimously. 4.3 October 10th, 2022, regular council meeting.
Move to approve.
A motion by Rich, second by
I'll take, I'll do.
Jeff.
Yep.
Any further discussion on the minutes as they've been submitted for the October 10th meeting? Brandon, please.
Crump,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Tukin,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Gombert,
Yes.
Motion to approve minutes carried unanimous. 5.0 consent agenda action needed. 5.1 review and approval liquor license. Item
Move to
1
approve.
Bottles. Item 2 Fairway. Item 3 Anamosa Bowling Center. Item 4 Deb Sports Bar, and item 5 Tucker's Tavern.
Move to
Second.
approve.
Motion by Kay, second by Allen. Before we call this to a vote, just for clarification, my understanding that a consent agenda, these can be bundled under one motion to be Made and second. The only caveat is there can be no discussion regarding after this motion has been made. If there needs to be further discussion on these, then we would need to rescind the motion and have a motion for each individual.
Question. I need to abstain from number 5.
You'll be abstaining from all of
The
them.
whole pack.
Okay.
But if I'm correct, she could have asked for number 5 to be removed and voted on separately.
Correct.
She could have.
Yes.
So that's your,
That's fine.
But either way, then you guys vote, obviously, you know. it should
Right,
have to vote, we have.
right. But if she wanted to vote on the other 4, she could ask for removal
Yes.
and separate vote.
if there's no discussion needed to be, let's move forward with Kay's motion. Alan second. Brandon, would you call a roll vote?
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Gombert. Crump,
Yes.
Smith,
yes,
Motion carried unanimously with 5 yeas and 1 abstain. 6.0 old business, 6.1 engineering reports. Several in chambers. If you would please come to the podium, state your name and your affiliation.
Actually, I have you on your own agenda item next for bridge.
Okay, I'll go first. Lindsay Beeman Snyder and Associates. Hi. I don't know if I have any questions on any of the projects. I did want to talk about on the roundabout, the Old Dubuque Road Extension project. Next time, next council meeting or next time I'm here, I want to discuss a proposed change order for the project. In just some of the initial stages of the project, we looked at, we being the city, the contractor brought this up to some changes that could be done to the south end of the project limits to kind of make it a better project for the homeowners there, just kind of clean up where a structure was, to reroute some stuff, better ditch grading, etc. It is proposed cost increase, but like I said, it was perceived to be an improvement to the project. So it's something that you're not going to decide tonight, but if you want to talk about it further, it's something I want to bring to your attention. And the change order was to clean up the start date contractually, but that doesn't change anything to the contract time either. Any questions on that project or other projects? They haven't been working actively. There's no good reason that I know of that they haven't been working actively. I mean, the schedule is the schedule. It hasn't changed. So that's not on me to make them work. It's just, we know when their schedule is up. So it's on them to get their work done in the time that's allotted to them. I was told they're going to be back this week. I don't know if they didn't start today or not. If it rained, I didn't check in with my crew to see if they were here today or not. Before I came here, I just thought about it when I got here. But they might not have started if they knew rain might be on the. Yeah, I don't know. Were they working today?
No,
Okay,
I don't
okay.
have you.
I didn't think to
Can
put it
you
out there.
remind us of the completion date?
It's a matter of days.
Huh.
And it just depends, because obviously if it rains like every day from here until January, then that does help them.
Mhm.
Was it 120 days?
Thank you. And I don't know how many have clocked by. I should have checked in with my ops guy. He keeps every day as it is a day that they can work. He tracks it in his books, so it gets counted. And it's on Doc Express too, so it gets
I think we're
counted,
about a month.
or at least a month
At
then.
least.
But like, so all of last week was 5 days just burnt.
Yep.
And before that, I don't think it was just a week, it's been a couple weeks, it seems like. So, we're gonna start having regular progress meetings with city and staff, just because it's been all over the place. It got off to a really rough and late start with a lot of different stuff going on, and now everybody's on board. We'll start doing regular construction meetings, so that'll help you guys get information better too, because it's been, yeah. And the DOT had a staff change. It's been a lot of excitement out there.
Lindsay, regarding these change orders, you'll be
Yeah.
providing the city council with the details regarding those?
Yep. I have some of that in front of me here, but I'll get that to you when it's officially being presented to you, but it has the quantities and the prices. All of the items in question are already under contract. So if you change the quantities, we already have the price fixed based on the original bid. So there's no surprises there, except for on one, it's an additional intake. So yeah, I'll get you some stuff to look at.
Any questions for Lindsay? Thank you for your report and updates. Appreciate you being here this evening.
Good evening, Kevin Graves with WHKS Engineers. And I'm here to provide an update on the wastewater treatment facility improvements, the design development phase that we've been working on. So the city had hired WHKS to evaluate a couple of specific issues happening down at the wastewater treatment facility. One being with the treatment process itself, looking at some of the solids handling equipment and some potential upgrades. And the second one being the stormwater lift station that is adjacent to the facility. So we've kind of been looking at both of those items, but have separated those out into two separate projects or analysis. So I will start with the wastewater treatment facility upgrades. We provided a memo that kind of summarized these items and hopefully made it into the packet. But our process in evaluating the items at the treatment facility included several steps. First one was to meet with the city staff, talk about the issues that have been going on, try to identify what those deficiencies, what are the problems that we're trying to solve. And then the second step was collecting information from them and analyzing the historical data at the facility. What had the treatment levels looked like, how had their actual solids handling equipment been working. And the third step after collecting all that information and talking about it was to identify what are those specific deficiencies at the treatment plant. So what's the deficiency, and then what is the correction to those deficiencies? So we've identified a couple of different things during the process. One being the phosphorus removal at the plant. Right now, Steve and the operations staff have been working through a compliance schedule with the state saying you have to get your phosphorus levels down to at least 1 milligram per liter. They've been working at that, progressing on it, but we've identified that they're getting down to say 2.5 as opposed to 1 currently. So one of the items that we have proposed in our recommendations is to add chemical phosphorus removal equipment, some plastic tanks and chemical feed pumps to be able to put in some sort of a alum or ferric chloride, a precipitant to help precipitate out that phosphorus, capture it in the sludge and remove it from the treatment process so that they can hit that 1 milligram per liter level and make sure they're not violating their current permit. The second item is the kind of the main driver of the project was the belt filter press. That is the piece of equipment that dewaters the sludge after it's removed from the treatment process to get it from kind of liquid form into more of the cake form, more of a soil type material that can be disposed of. And that belt filter press is aging. It's seen its better days. It's a very labor intensive operation, maintenance intensive piece of equipment. So we evaluated what would be the most cost effective way to repair or replace that equipment. So we looked at a few different options. One, just repairing the existing one. Second option is replacing the existing one with a new belt filter press. And the third option we looked at was replacing it with a screw press, which is going to be a less labor intensive. It provides a similar type of material as its end product, but is going to be less of a maintenance headache and probably a longer lasting product than the belt filter press. So our ultimate recommendation was to replace that belt filter press with a screw press for the solids handling unit, and then also provide those chemical phosphorus removal equipment, install that at the treatment facility. There were a couple other items that we also added on as additional recommendations. One is a sludge thickener you have existing tankage out at the treatment facility that's not currently being utilized, and retrofitting that with some sludge thickening equipment will help prep the sludge to provide a better, more thicker product with your screw press than if you were to just bring it straight from your treatment process over to the dewatering. So that was an item. And then the last one is some safety modifications at the sludge handling building, or the sludge transfer building, excuse me, which is the pit. So those were some railings and stairways to provide better access for the operators to pull the equipment and walk around the facility without kind of having some of those safety issues that are currently there. So I'll pause for a second and see if there's any specific questions before we kind of transition on.
Council ever wants a tour of the pit, I will happily show you what we are dealing with out there. It is not safe at all. Or any of the other things. Give me a heads up.
I've been out there.
So-
Kevin, the
Yep.
1 milligram of the phosphorus, is that a common baseline requirement, or is that a preferred level that the DNR would like to see?
It's a common baseline. The nutrient reduction strategy that the state of Iowa has been implementing, their baseline is 10 milligrams per liter for total nitrogen and 1 milligram per liter for total phosphorus. So it's very common for communities of your size to start receiving those limits from the state. Their threshold is treatment plants that have they're called major facilities, 1 million gallons per day or larger for the average wet weather flow.
So we're required to reach that goal.
Yep, you will be required to meet that specific goal. And Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're currently in an optimization process, or you're monitoring currently, and then after a certain period of time, I think it's October 1 of 2023, after you've taken a year's worth of samples, then they'll ask you to start.
Yeah, Steve Agnes, Utility Superintendent. Yes, a year ago, I got the DNR to push it back a year, since I had just started to try to, make some changes, change how we aerate things and stuff like that, to try to get our phosphorus levels down, and we just can't get them down. And like Kevin said, so in September, I had to submit a report to DNR with our phosphorus levels for the whole year. And probably next year, they will come down and say, okay, you will have to do whatever it takes to get it down to the 1.
So we've got a process that we're gonna have to go through, and that may include possibly other equipment or just chemicals. And
Yeah.
do you have any costs on that right now? What we may be looking at?
It's in the packet. That was
I
what,
didn't
like
get a
$90,000 or
chance to read that part.
$100,000 for that stuff.
I didn't get a chance to read that part. I just kind of wondered what it was.
For the, I think it was for the chemical edition, that was like $90,000 or $100,000 in. Yes.
The total construction cost, or the total project cost that we put together, kind of lumping all those 5 items together, was 1.4 million. And so we can look up that number to break it out, but the chemical tankage and equipment was a relatively small portion of that total 1.4 million. We've included it in here, just kind of packaging all that together under the assumption that we may be looking at trying to get state revolving fund loan through the state. That's another item that I hadn't mentioned yet, but the how to fund it is one of the next steps. And the current state revolving fund program has seen an influx of money here this past year with the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed federally. They're injecting 20 million plus per year for about 50 years. And there's a component to that money that it's required to be used as forgivable loan. So we've projected out, started looking at how they're gonna be doling that out, and we feel that Anamosa has a pretty high probability of receiving some forgivable loan or loan forgiveness as part of that process. So we're encouraging the city to look into trying to get that sort of funding package moving forward if you'd like to pursue it.
That was gonna be my next question.
So question, you said total is the 1.4 million down below, you have the 512,000. So the 1.4 includes the 512 plus 1.4 is everything.
It actually does not. So
Okay.
the 1.4 and the 512 are broken out into two separate projects.
So it could be closer to the 2 million.
Well, that's the 512 is the stormwater pumping station. That's behind.
And part of the reason that we broke those two items out is the 1.4 million is eligible and kind of easily lumped together for that SRF loan project.
Okay.
The stormwater work is not.
Okay.
So we think you'd probably be using two different pots of money for those two projects.
Going back to the phosphorus, so the 1 milligram, is that a max that the DNR wants you to be at? So is these preventative measures sustainable? And where do you estimate we will fall in? Because you don't ever want to run on that maximum line. You would hope that you would be well below it. So any other variables that gonna make their way into this,
Sure.
you still are able to sustain that requirement. So
Yep, very good point. The 1 milligram per liter is a monthly average that's required to be met. And the chemical phosphorus removal process is, I think it's definitely achievable and maintainable to be less than that one. Probably you normally want to run in the 0.7 range, probably just to make sure if you do see a hiccup that you're kind of still well below that, or if you have one sample that's 1.1, 1.2, the rest of them can be lower than that and take the average down for the month so that you stay in violation, stay out of violation. And the downside with it being a little too, I guess you could add as much chemical as you could kind of try to get it even lower. The downside there is then you're creating more sludge in the process and having additional costs, both chemically and to remove the sludge. So I'm not asking for any specific action here tonight necessarily, just providing this as an update. But we are, I guess, we're kind of reached the end of our design development phase that we're currently under contract for and are ready, willing, and able to assist the city in moving on with kind of the next phase of that process, which would be to start the final design and also initiate that funding process through the state, if you would like.
council have any questions for Kevin? Well, thanks for that report.
Sure. I will just say real quick as well on the stormwater pumping station portion, that 512,000 that we have identified there, there's three main components to our recommendations. The first component is to put in a new gravity pipe kind of down at the bottom of the lift station. Right now, your lift station operates in that it always has to pump. So the water fills up in the basin, it then pumps it out no matter how high the river level is. Our recommendation is to reconfigure that to have a pipe that is down kind of at the bottom of that basin. So under normal flows, like rain like we're seeing currently, the flow would just head by gravity out to the river. When there's a flooded condition, if the river level has come up, then we have a gate that would close off that pipes to prevent the river water from backing up into that area. And then we have two 75 horse vertical pumps that would take the water and kind of pump it up and over into the river so that you can still get that water that's collecting down by the ball field out and away, even when it's a flooded condition. So the three main components are that large gravity pipe, the two main pumps, and then just the electrical upgrades that are going to be needed in order to make that happen. And and the gate itself to close that off to prevent the river from backing up.
I don't know if this is in conjunction, but a few years ago, I thought we put in holding tanks when we became, overwhelmed with stormwater. The plant became inundated with it, that we could bypass it, put it into storage until time, Mother Nature allowed to process that through. Is this?
This is different. This is different. So what you're talking about is what's coming down this sanitary sewer pipe. And Lindsay is working on that, and we're getting close with that part. This is just the storm water that runs down the storm sewer that collects behind the wastewater plant.
Wasn't the stormwater the bogey in the equation that was causing us to be overwhelmed?
But it's not coming down, this is going down the storm sewer, not the sanitary. It's what's coming down the sanitary, which is causing the EQ basin issues. This is just what's running down the curb and gutter, going into the storm drains, flowing through the big pipe that Shane has just on the north side of the wastewater plant, and then it collects into a pond behind the wastewater plant. And then, like Kevin says, it has to be basically, if it's a small rain, it has to get pumped over instead of just flowing through. And without redesigning it, we're always going to be paying to have pumps fixed and stuff when you have a 1-inch rain. So it's designed backwards.
Imagine
So.
that. We continue to pay for past sins.
Mhm.
All right, I just want clarification that we didn't spend bad money now trying to chase it with good here.
One other question, the chemical used to remove, are there side effects using that chemical, or is it a safe chemical as far as what was it?
The phosphorus.
Phosphorus.
Sure. Depending on the two main chemicals that are used, one alum, which is aluminum sulfate, the other one is ferric chloride. So ferric chloride tends to be a little bit of a less costly product, but it is very corrosive. So some of the side effects, if you're not careful and you feed it the wrong spot in your plant, it can kind of eat away at some of the metal tankage or equipment that you may have there. So making sure not to put too much in or putting it in the right spot at the facility is important. The alum itself, I'm not aware of any real significant.
Does
side
this chemical
effects
stay in house, or does it go out with the byproduct?
Typically, it's precipitating out. So in your settling process, it'll settle out with the sludge. So as long as you're not dramatically overfeeding the chemical, it should be pulled out of the process and not make its way into the river.
Hopefully, or it won't. Just kind of wondering.
Sure. The only way that it could be is if there was somehow you change the pumps. The chemical feed pumps typically have a range. If you crank it all the way up, or your chemical tank has a spill and all that gets in there, those would be the only theoretical ways it could. But the state does require that you have secondary containment for your tankage, meaning you either have to have some sort of a berm around it inside the building, or have a dual wall tank so that process doesn't happen. So we take every precaution possible so that doesn't happen.
So in your design, it would be possibly a dual wall tank or what?
I think we would be looking at dual wall tanks. Yeah.
That was my concern.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Andrew Marsh from HR Green, Cedar Rapids. Here to provide an update on the HR Green projects. It's in your council pack. It's on page 29 of the council packet. Couple of highlights. Number one, Sycamore Street project is very near completion. The work in the field has wrapped up. There is a walkthrough scheduled for tomorrow morning. So we're very close to being complete on that one. We did reach the school superintendent, and we have a meeting scheduled with the school superintendent to discuss sites for the well 7 tomorrow afternoon. So I'll be back in town tomorrow afternoon for that. Booth Street construction continues. And later on in the agenda this evening, you have an agenda item for the water plant disinfection. And we did have a public meeting a week or so ago for the project for the sewer in the alley between Ford and Huber. And we did have several of the affected homeowners come, and it was a good venue for them to ask questions and find out more about the project. And we did get several of them to sign off on their respective easements. So we're partway through with getting the homeowners on board with that project. And with that, I open it up to any questions that you might have on our updates.
Will you tell me what the cement square is that's south of the new pump house?
Oh, thank you. Good assist. Kay, that is the, can you hear me okay, Kay?
Sure, thank you.
The new well across the street from the water treatment plant has a small building associated with it with electrical equipment and piping inside. And then outside the building, there is a provision for standby power. And I believe what you're talking about is the pad, equipment pad for where the standby generator is going to be placed.
I think you're right. Thank you. Now I know.
I got an assist on that one. Any other questions? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Andrew, for
Thanks.
that update and being amongst us this evening. 6.2, review and approval, Origin with bridge updates.
Nate Miller with Origin Design. Gonna give you kind of an overview of the various bridge stuff we got going on with it. The first one is your NBIS bridge inspections. You got 6 bridges that are on the National Bridge Inventory, so we need to inspect them every 2 years. They're coming due this fall. And we looked through our last contract that we did in 2020, and we can offer to do that for the same scope and fee as we did in 2020. So no changes, and we'd be able to get that done in about 30 days. That's about as easy as we can make that one. We'll take care of all the reporting, submit everything to the DOT for you. And then kind of give an update. We'll meet with Mike, Steve and Shane and see if we have any maintenance recommendations based on that. I think that last contract was for $2,700 is all that effort was.
Can you just remind us, I don't recall this, but maybe it was before I was here, the 6 bridges, where they are roughly? Do you know?
They're all over Stanley Creek, Division Creek, and then basically you start at the culvert on 2nd, 1st, 3rd. I haven't looked at them in 2 years. 3rd, and then Division, and then Sycamore, and then one up, I believe. They're all fairly short structures. I don't think any of them more than 30 feet. So that's all that one is. Next one up is the Division Street and the Stanley Creek Bridge replacement and the FEMA project. Last time I was here, I said anytime you're dealing with FEMA, you need to be patient. And that still stands. This project is in the exact same place it was with FEMA's review as it was in April. Other than the fact we've had 3 different FEMA project managers, and it turned from a transportation project to a water project with FEMA. So that just restarted their whole process. They've agreed they've gone back through and they've approved the hazard mitigation proposal and the damage assessment, which they had previously done. And so now it's going through the hazard mitigate or the environmental and historical preservation review process. Those are the answers that we need before we can complete the design of that Division Street Bridge. Because it's an adjacent project, so even though FEMA's not funding that component, they still have oversight as to what they're gonna want to see as part of that. The good news is I talked to the new project manager with FEMA. And he said that FEMA and the state have changed how they are reimbursing communities for these types of projects. And that applies retroactively to the derecho. So instead of being 85% funded, it's gonna be 100% funded. And so that covers all of the construction and engineering costs associated with the damage to that Gabion basketball.
100%. We can afford to be a little more patient.
I agree. And so, you know, we've been trying to work with FEMA to try to expedite this stuff, but again, since they've re-reviewed everything, they agreed with our hazard mitigation proposal, which includes putting, you know, cast in place concrete walls all the way along from that culvert on Old Dubuque all the way up to Division Street. And then aligning, doing a natural bottom all the way through that waterway. So that's going to significantly help the flow through that area, and it'll be a lot more resilient than those Gabion baskets. So I'll ask for more patience because it's really, there's nothing that we can do to expedite FEMA's review on this. As soon as we get answers, then we can kind of continue moving forward. The nice thing is this project has not even been allocated from FEMA to the state yet. And so there's going to have to be a time extension because the funding deadline is based on the disaster, but FEMA is working directly with the state to have that in their package. Because they can't expect us to design it and build it before they've decided how they want it designed and built. So they're working on it, keeps getting kicked back and forth. Our hazard mitigation person got pulled off to Florida. We've had, like I said, I think we've had 7 different project managers from FEMA.
Wheels of government turn slow.
And sometimes they just go in circles. But that's what it is. Right now, I still think we're looking at like 2024 construction for that. And so that also works out with some potential funding sources for that Division Street Bridge. So we'll work with Michonne on trying to get applying for some of these potential funding sources, and we'll see how that shakes out. And that's going to also come back to what the results of the NBIS inspection. So now for the bad news.
Just gonna say, that's all good news.
The Dillon Military Bridge. We were under contract to come up with a detailed repair plan and assessment for that bridge. And the truth is that project is about 10 years too late. I think that wing wall has moved 4 to 6 inches since the start of the year. We went out there a couple times to try to start our inspection, and with moderately high water, it was simply not safe for us to get out there. When the water was finally low enough, and Tom came out with his dive crew and we evaluated it. There's a lot of stone missing from underneath that abutment at the base, and that wing continues to move out. When I started pulling together costs to repair that, I got north of $500,000 on the repair cost without contingencies, without including any potential lead paint abatement if you're actually going to try to paint that bridge. You're really close to a brand new bridge at that point. We're only about 1/3 of the way through the contract, our contract fee for that. And in good conscience, before I go through and write a detailed repair report for something that I don't think is really feasible, technically or economically, I think that you'd be better served to start evaluating, using the remaining fee to evaluate what the costs for demolition of that structure would be and construction of new one, type, size, and location type things. I think your replacement bridge could be anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million, depending on how fancy you want it, where you want to place, and how you want to tie it into some adjacent trails and things. you could easily spend $750,000 on that existing bridge and you would have ongoing maintenance costs. It's already over 100 years old and it's not gonna, there's nothing that, you can't run that bridge forever. And so I'm proposing that we use the remainder of that fee that we have in our existing contract and then change the scope to start evaluating, kind of doing a feasibility of some other places that we could put that bridge and what some of those costs would be associated with it.
We've met on this and had some discussion about it. One of the things also we kind of talked about is generally, what are the options? Because if we do demo the bridge, people still need to have the accessibility of moving from one side to the other without walking across the highway. That's a danger there. So depending on placement and ideas we've come up with, if there's even a way, and I'm not saying it's the only way, but if there's a way to have a walking part on the inside of the bridge connected to it, we might be eligible for some assistance and funding from the other areas that are involved with that county and state or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options
Yeah, so
for
we have options.
coming
we
up
can
with
go
alternate
for.
ways.
What we were kind of looking for today is kind of two general things. Number one, for the bridge review, if you guys want to give me just some general guidance to have it email me the information, I'll have it on the next agenda. If you guys are feeling that, can't really vote on it today, we don't have the details for that, for the cost, but that's the first thing I'm looking for. The second thing is, I don't know if you guys want to think about, obviously, the military bridge, if demo is an option or not. But we need to, instead of going down a path that we may not need to go down, it'd be maybe more advantageous looking at other possible options and providing you guys with those options to make an informed decision. So you don't have to decide, obviously, demo or build or save at this point, but we need to know, do we want to pull him off of what he's currently assigned and use the rest of the funds to come up with an alternate plan that we can review and you guys can make a decision.
I mean, I'd be happy to kind of formalize the data that we have so far that would just kind of summarize, these are your ballpark cost estimates for kind of the three options. And then you can decide if you want to dig deeper into any of those. Well, like I said, we're only a third of the way through that contract. And I don't know what a detailed restoration report, if that's really the best and smartest use of your money at this point. I don't think anybody expected that wing wall to get that bad in a year.
And also did already confirm the county, at the state, and at the National Historic Register, the military bridge is not on. I've done that research as well. So confirm we're not gonna do something we're not supposed to be doing.
Really, it's not on
I know,
there. I know.
because that would change how some of the discussion went. If it was
Yeah, it is kind of disappointing, but
It would
I didn't see
certainly,
that coming.
yeah, if it was on the register, it would drastically increase the costs of removal because you would have to do some sort of historic mitigation for that.
I understand that we'd be looking at what the best approach would be. Thing is, my understanding is we cannot make a unilateral decision on this. It still has to be joint with the county. And I guess I'm kind of with the county as well. I'm not so sure that the state is fully resolved from this part of the decision making because it does lay within what we believe to be a portion of the state park. Also, it bridges the river that is under the DNR control. So, we can, I guess, attempt to map a direction. But I just wouldn't want to go to the left when the county and the state's thinking, well, we're going right here. So I don't know what that best approach is.
There's another monkey wrench in the gears, and that's a lot of the paperwork that showed the path of how the bridge went from one entity to another. Supposedly burned up in a fire in Des Moines. Am I correct in saying that? In Des Moines, I think. And so there's a lot of questions that may not be able to be answered. We're kind of,
Correct. And we actually have that as part of our discussion as well. But if it ends up being hypothetically $150,000 to demo, we might be able to do, you know, a third of the state, a third of the county, and a third of us. I do know from reviewing previous meetings a year ago that the county was trying to reduce / get out of the 2080 agreement having any responsibility. So they might be more apt to splitting the cost with us because they don't want anything to do with it. If the bridge isn't there, they don't have a 2080 to go back on. But that would be part of kind of the process of what we have to figure out and what our options are. But making that definitive hard line of, are we gonna let them continue the project and come up with all these numbers, or should we circle back and come up with a plan B to utilize the rest of the funding?
well, and then the other thing is, once the bridge is gone, if there's gonna be anything going across that river, it would probably be the city's responsibility then, or we-
No, because
Is
it's
there a way
not
to
city
share
land on
that?
the other side.
Yeah.
And we've already said we're constructing fencing. and
Yeah.
Do not enter signs for safety on both sides, even though the other side isn't necessarily ours.
yeah.
And obviously, we'd involve other entities in these discussions as we move forward. But not having the general direction of us taking the time to still stay on this main focus when there's been an
Yeah.
issue. And even if we put it back, it probably should not be at the same location. It needs to
I-
be more north or more south or somewhere else
I
because.
would think the state would get involved to some degree, because if there's a path, if people want to get to that part and they're walking or riding a bike, they're not going to want to on the highway.
Correct, we don't want them on the highway.
So maybe there will be some sharing there possibly.
Correct. So if we can get the direction to change focus
Yeah,
and come up with a detailed report of what it is so far, we're recommending potentially, not that I'm advocating I want to destroy a bridge, but if we're recommending kind of at this stage, possibly looking at the option of demoing, then I can share it with the county and the state and DNR and anybody else that needs it to let them know this is what we're facing.
okay.
It is unsafe. The bottom is buckling and washing away. It cannot remain in the current condition it's in. So there will be multiple people involved in this process. But if we don't kind of change gears and say, hey, this is what we've noticed, we've had a major shift in the last year, what do we need to do? And I do not think it's 100% the city's responsibility for all of that. There will be many players and it's going to take a while, but if we don't stop what we're doing on the current path and address that, it's going to take us even longer to get.
Well, how much time do we have? I mean, if it's going to take time like this, that bridge can drop in the river and then we got a big problem.
It is,
Correct. We've already got it walled
It's-
off, right?
it's
We already put it-
closed
Oh, not yet.
for-
The fencing, we're gonna be putting up.
it is
6
closed
foot?
for a reason.
12 foot, what do we put, 6 foot fencing? 6 foot fencing, like literally not just with the entryway, like all
You
the
can
way
still
around.
see where people are getting on that bridge.
Correct.
I've seen that.
Mhm. And we need to stop that because it's definitely safe.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a
And I
bigger
think we-
liability if the bridge is gone with that dam underneath it.
And so, as part of our efforts moving forward, if we do change focus, we can use our relationship with the state and with the county and start getting some of these other people involved with the process to let them know. I think that right now you are the more or less the de facto majority shareholders in that bridge. Legally and all that stuff, that's kind of above my pay grade. But I think that whatever kind of path you set forward is the one that's most likely going to get the most traction. If you leave it up to everybody else, then somebody else is going to end up making that decision for you. So I think that right now it's to the point where I think you guys need data so you can make what's the best informed decision. And I think the data that we're under contract to provide isn't necessarily going to get you there.
Well, I was thinking that 28E put us in the lead.
Well, I think it did. It's this is one of these projects you don't want to be the
Well-
quarterback on. You just want to be a player.
I get that, but
Afraid we're going to.
But with us being in the lead, we do need to keep the county informed and so forth, but we also need to be the forerunners and taking, control of it instead of stepping back. Because if everybody steps back, nothing's gonna get done.
That's right.
Well, that's why I'm thinking if he provides the information that we have thus far and a couple of the options. This is demo price. This is what it potentially is, 800,000 or whatever the number ends up being for remodel, and come up with a slew of options. Then you guys can review it, make an informed decision of where we want to go to contact those other agencies to let them know, this is what we're thinking at this point. What do you guys support or what do you believe? And then it'll be discussions and obviously budgeting and everything else will come with it. But if we don't start that, we're not gonna be able to get there to even have you guys have those options.
Yep.
Nate, I'm not asking to put you on the spot. A restoration to what's there to make it for public use again. $1 million, north of that yet?
To restore the bridge that's there, I mean, just ballpark and big picture numbers, you're gonna have $200,000 tied up in the deck and the bridge rail. If there's lead paint and you're gonna abate that, you could have $250,000 tied up in that. Your masonry restoration costs are $100,000. And that's not even until you start rebuilding that one southeast wing wall. And then you have to have access. You have to reset one of those truss bearings. You're gonna have to build a causeway to go all the way out into the river so they can actually work around both of those abutments for dewatering. I got to an estimated project cost of about $800,000. And that was kind of big brush strokes. So projects like this, the more you start digging into trying to restore something this old and in this state, those cost estimates never get lower the further you investigate.
There's a lot of steel.
They'll go up quick.
They go up quick.
So then what would be a removal cost?
I think your straight demolition cost is probably somewhere in that $150,000 to $200,000 range, and it depends on how much embankment restoration work is going to go into it. Again, trying to make sure that the flow goes into the river, coordinating with the DNR and permitting and things like that.
Based on that, unless the state would come in and pick this up and take off with it, I don't know if the county or the city is in any financial position to be partnering on a $500,000 bridge restoration project. I certainly think the county and the city would be more favorable for the demolition of the removal. Now, I know that may not please the public, but you know, we have to be stewards of the money. It's a council decision. And I'm just trying to think out loud, throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks there.
I can even further state that since I've been here, Tom and I have had multiple conversations about attempting to save the bridge and what we could potentially do. So it is something that I kind of take heavy hearted to even discuss, but once the data was in, it's hard to recruit the fact that that's a lot of funds that we use potentially somewhere else or something. And I don't want to necessarily upset the public either, but you know, it's been positive conversations of what can we do to get us to salvage it up until we got to this point. And they did the dive and realized it's progressed much further than we could ever anticipate. Normally it's an average of what, a couple
Zero.
meters maybe? Yeah,
You're
zero,
supposed
couple
zero
millimeters. We have
movement on
inches-
the, yeah.
Inches of movement just since April.
So I mean, like I started off with, the unfortunate truth is that this project needed to happen 10 years ago. And you know, that FEMA project from 2009 that didn't happen was probably the time to start a lot of this work. When we looked at it, you know, over the winter, there was a potential to stabilize it in place and come up with a much cheaper fix. But the fact that it's moved this much, this soon, just kind of lets you know the state that it's in, and that kind of tells the story. Right now, it's a safety hazard, and so mitigating that hazard is your number one priority, and then figuring out what to do after that. It's just not economically feasible. If you're going to spend more than it would cost to build a new bridge, you need to make that decision very deliberately.
Do you have any kind of a guesstimate of when it could collapse? I mean, a good heavy rain, if we have heavy snow, a lot of water coming downstream.
So I'd say that wing wall is already unstable. And so It could be, I mean, I don't know if it's gonna make it through, honestly, the freeze and the thaw. That could produce enough soil movement behind it to destabilize it. You could get a big rain or a flood that could wash it out. I don't know. And that's one of the reasons that the repair is so technically and economically challenging. Is that now you're trying to propose a work plan around something that is inherently unstable. And so, for me to recommend that it stay closed and the area around it be, keep pedestrians and everything away from it, that's not made light. And so,
The thing is, even as much as we try to protect them from doing something crazy, some of these people will find a way to get on that bridge anyway.
And we've had not just our meetings and meeting with top staff and I have had multiple discussions of, now that we know it's kind of turned to this avenue, safety first. How are we protecting visitors, residents, anybody keeping off that bridge? So yeah, putting up a 6-foot fence around the whole entire thing, not just at the walkway, past the perimeter on both
Yeah.
sides and putting up and do not pass and do not cross and whatever we have to do. Because obviously we don't want something to happen.
Yeah.
Or somebody, heaven forbid, take a snowmobile on there.
Is that abutment part of the dam or is that just,
no, that abutment's separate from the dam.
okay, so removing that would not affect the dam? You know more about it than I do, I suppose you guys do, but that wouldn't affect the dam.
Well, really, you're just gonna remove enough of it where the embankment is stable. So you wouldn't actually try to remove it all the way down to get below it, because it's kind of dam adjacent at that.
Okay.
And so you just kind of get it down to where the existing abutment would basically just act as an embankment stabilizer and it would be completely buried. So you wouldn't be affecting the dam itself. But that's one of the costs that could potentially increase the cost of the actual demolition of it, because you can't just pull the bridge off and leave it.
Well, and if it's that close, I guess my thoughts are if it could happen any day, probably should have like a crisis plan, if it happened, like what's gonna happen if it falls in, what steps are taken, because it's you can't run around and what do we do
Right, and
now?
that's why
Have
I
a plan.
have
Yeah.
it's like on the agenda is you guys need to be aware there's a critical
I mean-
point at this point. He needs to probably stop working on the regular original plan
Yeah.
to come up with a backup option. What you
Then
guys
all
think?
parties that we think are involved in this need to be notified and a plan needs to be drawn up somehow. You need to come up with something.
Yeah, I would agree that getting a demolition plan would be a prudent maneuver. So that way you would know what to do and hopefully you can do it in a controlled manner.
Well, it sounds like it needs to be done sooner rather than later, so as soon as possible. We need to have a plan.
Well, we could certainly develop a proposal to take care of that. To add that scope of services to come up with a demolition plan and include an emergency plan as part of that.
That's the reason it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
Well, it's up to you guys.
Obviously, to shift gears, we should have a motion to determine
I
that.
think so, yeah. I think we should.
I
have a
would be
motion.
comfortable that way, but.
Yeah.
It's
Just to at least give him direction, then he can direct the plan, however long that takes, and then if it's the next council meeting, so we have like 3 weeks till the next one.
So,
Then it'll be in your next packet to at least figure out some general information, and we can start sharing it with the other entities.
so you'd like a motion for demolition and emergency?
Change the scope of work.
Yeah.
Right, to change the
scope
scope of work to that.
Tom, if you have a comment, would you please come up, state your name?
I'm very downtown property owner. I wasn't aware that Nate was gonna be here till this morning. I have some preliminary prices and I don't wanna, without having it printed off, I don't wanna say. And obviously, my heart is in saving the bridge. And I understand all points of it by all means. It is extremely dangerous. I'll kind of back up here a little bit. When I dove it, and I use this term loosely, lack of a better way to put it, I was pleasantly pleased with what's under the water level. Not saying there's no damage. A lot of mortar's gone. There's a few still there on the park side. One area, I believe, was about a foot below the water line. There was some damage, but it's the structure above it. But at the next meeting, I guess I could bring it in because I got a price on a replacement bridge. They give me a rough idea on demolition, which I hate to even have that come out of my mouth. But we still have to fix the abutments, and I'm not quite sure what Nate's saying here. If we take the bridge off and the abutments set, if we're talking just taking them down a ways, or the city side, the abutments are completely away from the dam. The park side, the dam and they meet in a corner, and there's like a wing wall that comes out. I don't know how much of that structure is tied together or how it's tied together under, you know, in the water and under the water and all that, but yeah, obviously something needs to be done. The last time I measured, it had moved. The time before that was 3/8, a 1/4 inch, 3/8 and a 1/2 inch respectively from the 3 key points I keep measuring. It's slowed down a lot, but I think there's a dead tree holding it in place. And it's like the top 5 stone, and when we were in the water, you can really, when you're there looking at it, you can really see how it's leaning. So yes, obviously something needs to be done. It kills me to the thought of having it dismantled. Tyler did talk with somebody if this matters or not, and hold on a second, I'll go to the 28E, and I think you're right. I gave the only copy that I had to the city, so I don't have that copy anymore, but I believe the city is the lead on it. I know the county is, in my opinion, trying to back out of it. So, you know, there's a shared cost. I don't think the state's gonna probably be in any of it. But Tyler did talk with someone if this matters, and I don't know if, I don't think we ever mentioned it to Nate, but somebody that has a crane that's big enough to lift up one end at a time. They can't physically lift. I think that bridge was estimated at 120 tons, I think. So cranes to move that, or, you know, so you're not just, we're not gonna just move it off. It's gonna have to be dismantled or torn down. So, but anyway, yeah, like I said, I'm very passionate about it. I can bring the prices to the next meeting. The new walk bridge was, I believe, 160 some feet long. It was the typical arched, nice looking bridge, you know, like you see everywhere. It's just a smaller pedestrian bridge. I can't remember how wide it was. They gave me a couple options on the deck. That company was the ones I originally talked to about the restoration on it. And for some reason, they did kind of, so they don't have the manpower to do it. I don't know if they didn't want to get involved in it, because they don't do the stone structures, they do concrete. And as far as if we move it up, and Nate would know more than I would, if we move that bridge up, I'm assuming we're gonna have to have a water shed, or whatever you call that, analysis for the.
Yeah, any structure that you put in there is gonna have to have a full hydraulic permit and analysis done to show that you're not creating any additional backwater.
Yep.
So any new bridge, the simplest way to get that permitted would be to put any of the substructures in the hydraulic shadow of that road bridge upstream. So you'd be looking, trying to do like a 3-span bridge that kind of mimics the general span shape of that upstream structure.
And on that part, one, I personally hate that, you know, because like I was telling you, one of the last meetings I was at, you know, I'm sitting there as I'm leaving, there's people with lawn chairs sitting on that bridge fishing with their coolers and stuff next to them. And I don't know how far away the plans would be to put that, but, you know, people are coming down that hill, if they lose control, you know, what's going to happen if that is closer. My opinion is, depending on, again, what we can do with the abutments and how they're going to be fixed, if they have to be fixed to preserve the dam or however that all works, I have no clue. Then do we just put the bridge right back on them abutments and save the, I don't know if it would be easier to do that part and then try to do the whole thing, and you know, what's it gonna do, is the park gonna let us because they got the boat ramp, you know, is it gonna be, I'm sure, a lot of impact on it that Nate's gonna know a lot more about than I do, but.
We tried. We've had a lot of meetings about it. before we got here for you guys today. It's been frustrating because you don't want to do something that we maybe have to do, but we need the information and data so you guys can review it and really honestly spend some time thinking about it, how we want to progress.
So, yeah, I guess maybe also, give Nate whatever he needs to move forward, but before we make too many decisions, I would like to bring these, so you guys know, have in front of you what the new walk bridge is gonna cost. There was shipping on a new bridge, there was a wood deck versus a concrete deck, there was some variables in there. And so I'd like to really bring the prices before we.
We're not making a decision tonight. We only have general discussion. The decision would be to stop him doing his current course of action on the contract and focus on the other options to give us options, not necessarily just them, but just give us the options, kind of what you have as well, and then you can have your stuff.
And he's pretty close on the demo. The price I got, I think was, we'd actually talked, I think it was 160, 150 to 160, I believe. That's a rough estimate on that. So
that's all I'm looking for tonight. And that's why I don't have it as a resolution or anything. It's just giving the verbal okay to stop our current course, refocus, to spend the rest of the funds on his contract the best way we possibly can. What all I'm looking for.
all right, thank you.
Well, I'll make a motion to alter the current contract to go with looking at demo and emergency preparedness and any other options then that you can come up with.
Motion by Rich, second by Brooke. We focus on the demolition side. Any further council discussion? Any public comment? Brandon, please conduct a roll vote.
Gombert,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Tukin,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes,
Crump,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimous.
Did we also say someone wants to give a motion for him to give us a quote for the next meeting as well for the bridge inspections? That need to be done here next.
From Nate.
There's no price increase from when we had it done in 2020.
Yeah, but do we need a motion or does he just need to present?
Present in the packet, just
I wondered, does that have to be an RFP, RFQ?
sent us only $2,700 now.
Does not.
If he has direction, then he'll draft it. So we have it for next week. So I'm just making sure you guys are comfortable with that. I don't want to just assume, but yeah, we don't have to go out for anything.
So I engage, entertain a motion on the bridge inspections.
I'll make the motion to have you draft a new contract for $2,700 for bridge inspection.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Alan. Council discussion. Public comment. Brandon.
Crump,
Yes.
Smith,
yes,
Tukin,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Gombert,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimous. Nate, anything else for us?
That's what I got. I'll keep you guys informed.
Well, it was good news all in all. Something we really didn't care to hear, but it is what it is.
Well, I spend a lot of my time doing bridge inspections, and most of the time a bridge inspector comes in front of the city council, it's not because I have good news. Thank you.
We
Thanks,
think
Nate.
highly of you. Thanks for all that update, Nate. 6.3, resolution 2022-67, awarding the contract for the Anamosa Police Station construction project to Dave's Complete Construction and authorizing the city administrator to execute the appropriate documents.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. On that note, I have to run farther during my summertime runs, so hopefully we have better news coming out of this. I am here tonight to ask you to award this project to Dave's Complete Construction. Just to recap a little bit, in 1903, the building that's currently the Anamosa Police Department was built and established as the Anamosa Library. In November of 2004, the Anamosa Public Library moved into the new facility as they were, and this is quote, struggling to address the seating, programming, and technology needs of a growing community. The modern and updated library facility, 12,000 square foot structure, it cost roughly $2.2 million. Prior to 2005, the Anamosa Police Department shared a facility with City Hall, but sharing the space and the resources were problematic. In May of 2005, the Anamosa Police Department moved to its current location. It did offer more space, which is around 3,000 square feet. However, due to flooding and air quality issues, the use of the basement was limited, bringing the total usable square feet to about 2,084. To put this into perspective, my residence is 2,792. The PD provides 24/7 operations and houses personnel who, like most employees, spend equal or greater amounts of time in this building than in their own homes. We also cram in there the desks, computers, servers, cameras, uniforms and equipment, office supplies, filing cabinets, fridge, microwave, firearms, evidence, found property, reference manuals, vehicle equipment, and various documents. This temporary facility had many additional problems as well. So this was from, I had asked the previous librarian to get with me when we first started this back in 2019. She provided me reports from the journal Eureka stating that in 2005, the building was 102 years old and was suffering from many age-related illnesses. There was exterior restoration issues, masonry joints, tuck points, unsealed expansions, joints, soda blasting, window caulking repair, and stone repair were issues discussed at city council meetings. Immediate replacement of the HVAC system was necessary to meet the demands of 24/7 operations. However, an insufficient system was installed. Electrical issues and the lack of backup power were also discussed. Some electrical updates were installed as temporary solutions. And although the space was increased, the layout was not conducive to police department operations. Interior renovations were constructed just to get by, but privacy and security remained an issue. One of the primary reasons that the library moved was due to technology issues. These issues were never remedied when the building became a law enforcement facility. Parking problems for patrol vehicles were recognized and discussed, and the only solution offered was to continue using a garage, excuse me, that was formerly located by City Hall. Even before the garage was removed, it was inconvenient and relatively unused. Additional questions were brought up regarding traffic-related issues and congestion on First Street. And while not a critical issue, this has and continues to be a small problem. Nearly 18 years ago, it was heavily debated whether this move was the best plan, but the move was deemed to be necessary. However, the move was also explicitly stated to be a temporary solution. Here we are 18 years later in this temporary facility. In May 2018, I was appointed chief of police for the city of Anamosa. My first 6 months, I spent assessing the police department and its operations. I noticed that the exterior of the police department was decaying, the roof leaked, and the structure lacked energy efficiency. Drainage and watershed issues were apparent. Parking was a problem for patrol vehicles, employee parking, and visitor parking alike. Patrol vehicles and equipment stored in them are exposed to the elements 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Garbage pickup is limited and no adequate space is available for a dumpster. The facility does not meet ADA standards except for the sign out front that tells you can call inside and we'll come out to meet you. This prevents disabled and elderly individuals from accessing the building. The stairs are problematic for these individuals in normal weather conditions and a cause for concern for employees and visitors during inclement weather. The interior of the building is also decaying. Video was shared with various local media outlets who ran stories on this in 2019, showing water dripping down the walls onto employee desks and into light fixtures. The painted limestone walls are cracking, peeling, and breaking off onto the floors and the windowsills inside. It lacks functional space and has very little semblance of professionalism. Just to break from that for a little bit, I want to make sure I express to you my heartfelt position on this. It is very embarrassing to repeatedly tell people coming in to my department, I apologize for this mess. I can't do anything about it. We want to fix that. We want to look professional. We want to be professional to the community and to those that we bring in when we invite people into our police department without having to apologize for the mess. Security and safety issues are problematic throughout the facility. The lobby is small and often crowded, and it provides no privacy for employees or citizens who are discussing items of sensitive nature. The entire lower level is essentially compromised of unused space due to flooding, mold, mildew, air quality, and layout issues. This limits storage and workspace, severely restricting efficient workflow operations. Garbage and recycle items are frequently stored in open and sometimes public location due to limited refuse options associated with the lack of space available for a dumpster or recycle. And we frequently are walking visitors, victims, witnesses, and others through our break room or through our workspaces just to conduct police-related business. Department personnel are required to make use of single open office space to conduct these interviews, collect and catalog evidence, clean and repair firearms, store equipment, type reports, and use as a break room. The IT updates were limited due to the aging structure, one of the primary reasons that the library moved in the first place. The electrical capabilities are limited, and there's a great deal of unusable space. All of these problems existed and were discussed in 2005. They existed and they were discussed in 2018, and they still exist today. In 2019, I began working with the city administrator at that time and the city council to assess the deficiencies of the current facility and make required recommendations while beginning the process of securing a new police department. This was not a half-hearted assessment that merely included a wish list of items. We meticulously and thoroughly began a transparent process in accordance with the recommendations outlined in the International Association of Chiefs of Police Facility Planning Guidelines.
Thank you.
We drew on our own professional experience and communicated with other public managers as well as engineers to outline the required resources or inputs needed to provide the most efficient and effective law enforcement services to this community. The outputs. Through careful oversight, direct management, a commitment to fiscal responsibility, forging positive public relations, and through the generosity of several individuals who supported this project, we're at the finish line. Through an open public process that started in 2019, the city was gifted the property where the new facility is to be located, negotiated the sale of the current aging and dilapidated facility, entered into an agreement to remain in the current facility until our new facility is renovated, and have determined a viable option to fund this investment. I am happy to say this did go out to bid here recently. The bid was very near what we had originally hoped for, and it was lower than we have anticipated over the last couple of years, just given all the costs. And that's even with contingency costs. So what we have today from Dave's Complete Construction is as close to a sweet deal as we're ever going to get. So I am asking for your vote. We want to make sure that we have a police department for our personnel well into the future. I think this accomplishes that. If any of you have seen the plans, I hope you've seen the plans. Everything that we need is in that facility. There's room for growth. And I'm really looking forward to the ability to put that courtyard outside and give something back to the public, make it more of a shared green space for the community. So we can make it the community's police department and not my police department or our police department, but the police department for the city of Anamosa. Any questions?
I also have a memo in the packet stating that Jeremy and I have had multiple discussions. He realized the possible funding source. We do have budgeted under security, some cameras. When we went to start that process, that was already budgeted and discussed with council previously. It's been too long of a time frame. We'd have to go back to bid them out anyway, and they're guaranteeing it'll be at least 10 and 20% higher for our review. So we probably wouldn't make this fiscal year anyway. We do have budgeted funds that we can use towards this project because it is more than a $700,000 price point. So it's already in the budget. We could potentially use that. And then when we get the quotes for the security cameras and system, we can just put that into next year's budget and split that out if necessary. I'm short only about $38,000 right now, which I could potentially find $38,000. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, but $38,000 I can. And I've already spoken with the engineer who spoke to Dave's Complete Construction, even though the original completion date, I think, was
April.
he has agreed if we need to push it back to have a completion date of like July 15th to get the $38,000 in the next year's budget, he's willing to accommodate that request. I would just give more time to complete. So I think we 100% have come up with the issue of funding. So I definitely would recommend being positive with this transaction and allowing the police department to continue the renovation.
So the figure for security cameras was budgeted to be at the old police station or the,
No, so they're at city facilities.
oh, that was the total price for all the different city
Yes.
buildings. Okay, that was my
It wasn't at
question.
the police station.
Okay.
And then we
And-
also didn't want to go forth and put the security in all the different places. When we get to the cameras for security, I think it needs to be secured at the police department and not have anybody have access to it at other locations
Yeah.
for security.
You'll know the layout when it's done for where they go in there too.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't remember, but did that 153 also include the IT portion of it, the servers to,
I
can't remember.
don't know about that because I went through, sorry, I have it written out here on a spreadsheet. I just went through the budget and pulled all the line items for it. Because we have, it just is under security system. So it's 16,500, 48,000,
Right.
23,220, from each department area of what we'd have to pull from each department. 33,700, 32,100 is what we have. The totals the 153. So, yeah, so I've subtracted off, from the original 700, how much we were short, plus that, and like I said, it's only $38,080.06 that we're off. And that's a doable number potentially that we could find internally. We're gonna have to do a budget amendment anyway, January, February, once we have hard numbers for how we are financially now, what's going on with this fiscal year. So I don't see necessarily a problem with that at all.
That's good to hear.
Well,
We've been working.
you did a lot of work on that. I'll make a motion to award this to, what is it?
Dave's.
Dave's Complete Construction with the but using the security camera budgeted funds and changing the completion date to July 15th.
I'll second that.
Motion by Rich, second by Alan. Council discussion.
Congratulations, chief.
You don't have
Well,
it
it's
yet.
not done yet.
It's coming.
And additionally, we only have 3 years to use the funds from when we receive them, or we have to return all the funds. Yeah, we've already had the funds over a year, so I'm sticking with that as well. Don't forget that.
Not hearing any council discussion. Is there any public comment? Hearing none there either. I'm going to ask Brandon to conduct the roll vote.
Smith,
Yes.
Dukin, Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Gombert,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimously. Would you like to re-congratulate?
Congratulations, chief.
Thank you.
6.4, Resolution 2022-68, authorizing adoption of policies and procedures regarding municipal securities disclosure.
There's multiple pages to this. This is what all bonds are going to get is just the necessity of when we have to report items, when we have to make sure we're doing everything above board. So it's a security issue for the fact, even as something as small as if we're going to take out a loan, we just have to let them know at the state level that we'll be taking on more funding, so they're aware of what's going on. The funds should be deposited this week. For Old Beach Road of the $2.2 million will be deposited this week, and then we'll have those funds in place as well. But this is part of that final package.
we just need a motion to accept this
Correct.
resolution.
Yep.
I move to accept this resolution.
Second,
Motion by Allen, second by Kay. Further council discussion? Public comment? Brandon?
Tukin,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Smith,
yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Gombert,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimous. 6.5, review and approval payment to Eastern Iowa Excavating and Concrete for Sycamore Street reconstruction and sanitary replacement in the amount of $35,766.07.
Move to approve.
Second,
Motion by Rich, second by Kay. Council discussion. Public comment. Brandon?
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Gombert,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Smith,
yes.
Tukin,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimously. 6.6, review and approval. Payment to Boomerang for Fire Station Addition. Pay app number 11 in the amount of $1,928.50.
I will preface just for a moment, to talk about the funding of the fire department. They are past substantial completion. They will owe us funds every day that it goes over. Part of it is supply chain issues. But the total overall council approved funding is way over what we have allotted for funds. I'm not sure all the avenue options we have for payment right now, like substantially. Last council meeting, we only had $55,000 left in the fund specifically for the fire station, for things that we've approved to come in. We can't really go back on what we've already approved because they've already redesigned and re-engineered for what we've approved, but we're approximately $190,000 over. I'm trying to come up with some information. I'm going to see if there's any option at all, since we're not the only contributing financial factor to the fire department, to see if we can get some financial assistance. I'm not sure why it's 100% on us to do the addition. So I'm not saying don't do the payouts because they've done the work, they deserve to get paid. But I am extremely mindful and I've been having multiple discussions on trying to figure out how we're going to figure out how to fund this. I don't know if we can use reserves for it. One of the options Dan came up with was we could borrow from the truck fund to cover it and then put it in next year's budget, but that doesn't solve the issue of coming up with $190,000 potentially. So I am coming up with items, but we need to be very mindful. There was a discussion at one point about possibly doing a door update. I said, absolutely not, even though it's only $2,000, we're way over already. I'm not bringing anything else to you guys. It's new, not even part of the discussion. You guys won't even see it. We've already overcommitted at this point. So I just want to let you know, I don't want to not pay because we are required to pay what we approved, but I am going to come up with some ideas. Potentially, I'm going to have all the answers now, but so you guys know that I'm going to ask others for financial assistance and kind of get us back on track where we need to be.
With that, we entertain a motion to pay Boomerang for the work that they've completed.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Alan. Further council discussion? Public comment? Brandon?
Stout,
Yes.
Gombert,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Tukin,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimously. 6.7, review and approval payment to Shive Hattery for Fire Station Addition services through 10/7/22 in the amount of $3,000 $868.06. Is that Brooke?
Yep.
Motion by Brooke. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Teresa. Further council discussion?
And what was this work for that they,
They're usually engineering. things.
and is,
They give an itemized listing of what it's entailing.
and is this coming out of the extended contract for 15,000?
This is still part of the original services. This isn't anything over and above, and this is the last one and this one are not change orders. These are just work performed. And both of these payments today do fall within the $55,000 that we still have on debt. It's just, once we get over that hump of $55,000, figure out what we're gonna do. So that buys me a little bit of time, but I don't know. But yeah, these are still within the normal parameters of what they are. Let me see if I can.
And have you approached them about potentially paying for part of the drainage from the downspouts?
I have been coming up with many ideas. And having strong discussions with engineers and people. So much so that at the end of a meeting that I had on a Zoom meeting with two of the engineers, they wanted to quantify at the end that I wasn't upset with them and what they've done. So I've been kind of putting my foot down on it because it's not right that they kept adding things or changing things or whatever. And one of the discussions that's happening as well behind scenes is when we have a project, if anything needs to change or get updated on that project, it should come through me so I can provide it to you guys to make a decision, not the director of a department having input and somebody else having input and somebody else having input, because I think that gets away from everybody for what's actually happening, what should be approved. So that's been discussed as well. That won't have to get too many hands in cookie jar, causing problems.
The other questions? Public comment? Brandon?
Crump,
No.
We have motion by Brooke and second by Teresa.
Smith,
No.
Dukin,
Yes.
Zumba,
No.
Stout,
Yes.
Gombert,
Okay, could you please restate your vote? I wasn't sure of what I heard.
I voted no.
So we have 3 yes votes and 3 no votes. So my understanding is this payment dies for a lack of majority.
Go back to them and say that we would like some of the engineering refunded from some of the drainage issues that we've had.
I could add a few things myself. I'm disappointed about.
And if they say no, I mean, is the project gonna stop in its tracks then, or?
No, because we've already committed to everything else, but we'll have to come up with a resolution of whatever that is and bring it back to you guys, because we have committed and have done services, but, yeah, just continually giving the fund, if we're not gonna give it back, if that's what council thinks, that we should have a discussion on that, and that's the direction to go with that.
6.8, review and approval. Payment to Eastern Iowa Excavating for the Boo Street Water and Storm Sewer Improvements number 2 in the amount of $228,904.07.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Kay, second by Allen. Further discussion? Public comment? Brandon?
Tukin,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Gombert,
Yes.
Smith,
yes,
Motion to approve carried unanimous. 6.9, review and approval. Payment to Gingrich Well and Pump Service LLC for final completion and retainage release for Jordan Well number 6, bid package 1, well drilling in the amount of $76,915.55.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Allen. Further discussion? Council, or excuse me, public comment? Brandon?
Stout,
Yes.
Gombert.
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Tukin,
Yes.
Smith,
yes,
Crump,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimous. 6.10, review and approval, payment to Boomerang for application number 8 for Jordan Well 6, bid package number 2, in the amount of $54,536.24.
Move to approve.
Second.
By Rich, second by Jeff. Further council discussion?
do we know who planted the trees around the new well?
Culver's dead.
On our say so, or Boomerang, or Gingrich, or what?
Okay, Steve with the utilities. It was part of the bid package to put the
Oh,
trees.
okay,
So,
they look really good, thanks.
okay.
Any other council discussion? Public comment? Brandon?
Gombert.
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes,
Tukin,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimously. 7.0, new business. 7.1, resolution 2022-72, setting a public hearing on proposed plans and specification, form of contract and estimate of cost for the water treatment plant disinfection system improvements.
This is from our discussion today, where we're going with the testing and nitrates and everything. on nitrates, but- Oh, sorry.
This was to eliminate the chlorine.
Oh.
The
sorry,
gas
yes,
chlorine.
Yeah.
So we had
So-
HR Green helped us, go through the design, the permitting process. Since it's under $100,000, we contracted 7 different contractors. HR Green give us this resolution so we could get everything, so it's done correctly through the council. We'll be opening the bids the week before next council meeting, and then hopefully awarding that bid at the next council meeting. So,
This is just sitting here. You have to go through that process. Sorry.
Resolution 2022-72.
Second.
Motion by Allen, second by Rich, set the public hearing. Further discussion on council? Brandon?
Smith,
yes,
Crump,
Yes.
Tukin,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Gombert,
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimously. 7.2, review and possible action. Spook parade, reindeer run, parade of lights.
These are requests from the chamber, it is here. That's the thing, I have the application and the maps for each of the events. we kind of collaborated and figured these are gonna be things that will come up in the next month or so anyway, so I just suggested that we put them all together. So then they can plan and advertise accordingly, as well. And we can plan workers to be where they need to be, or, block off streets or have police available or whatever, so the earlier we get these approved.
So these be
Street
approved
department.
on a consent agenda?
They could be, I didn't put them that way, but they could be, because I didn't know if anybody wanted to, because is one of them different or new out of those three?
I don't think any of them are new. The reindeer run is an annual thing. I'd like to bring some professionalism to it. I believe last year they just ran on the sidewalk. So this would be a new, not a new event, but a new street closure request.
Didn't they run right down Main Street?
I believe so. What we are looking to do is start and finish at the LCC while using the newly completed trail on Shaw Road for the majority of the run.
Cool.
So the street department guys follow the reindeer with shovels. Just asking.
So are you gonna up and crossing on Lynn Street and back to the LCC down like Maine or?
My
Or
my
what-
thought was we would start at the LCC and we would have a little bit where we'd run on the sidewalk by where like Wayne Hall is, and eventually they would connect where you get to Scott and Shaw. They would go out on the trail out there.
Okay.
They would cross the Hale Bridge and run a little bit into the park, and I did get approval from WAPC to do that, and then they would run back. So basically they start and finish at the same location.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve all three.
I'll second that.
Motion by Rich, second by Alan. Proceed under that this is a consent, so there will be no discussion. Brandon, would you conduct a roll vote?
Zumba,
Yes.
Dukin,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes,
Crump,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Gombert.
Yes.
Motion to approve carried unanimous.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, and especially for fostering these three events for within the community. Thanks. 7.3, review and approval of current bills.
go accept Julia's call.
Okay, did you make a motion to approve?
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks for that motion.
Second.
Motion by Kay, second by Rich. Have two questions regarding, Michonne did answer one of them earlier today. Draw your attention to page 3 of the bills, JC Cross Company. Towards the bottom of the page. There's a bill for $22,758 for repairs. I received a copy of the invoice. It was a new Kaiser Omega 64P blower.
Yes, that's correct. We had one of the blowers at the wastewater plant ate its cookies. So we had to, it was beyond repair and had to buy a new blower. So.
Second question I had is page 6, SNS mud jacking. Was that on a city sidewalk or approach? Or was that we paid for someone in the private sector?
Shamer, our street superintendent. No, we paid for our city sidewalk. It was uneven and got it mud jacked
Where was the location change?
downtown,
Like where specifically?
Main Street.
In front of?
Our fire hydrant of Booth.
$1,100.
Might be with.
I'm just saying, I didn't know if it's football game or what.
Through the LCC, or through the Rex.
Yeah, we're actually in the process of making sure we get things timely. And I think I mentioned last council meeting that sometimes we.
I figured it was somewhere, but I
Yeah.
just.
Yeah. we're
I-
getting those all caught
Or
up.
it was a typo.
Do you have more? I just had a couple things that, so if you kind of tie these back, so on page 2, the Eagle View Lane Development, that those almost look like they're a wash. And then if you go to the next page, Forge, which that's the new name of Eagle View, I guess, are those, I guess my question is, those were TIF development agreements. Is that going back to the developer or the current owner? Because they're different entities.
So some of the TIF payments we made under Eagle View were awarded. We have 4, right? 4 of them from last fiscal year that council has approved, and they didn't turn in the paperwork to the county. The county gave us the funds for that on a rebate. We got them at the beginning of June, but the checks actually weren't sent out
Okay.
to those 4 individuals. I was made aware of it as soon as I showed up. They're like, hey, we would like our money.
So,
Part of it is playing catch up. The other part of it is what's currently scheduled.
okay, but like when you look at those numbers, that one's a positive, one's a negative, they basically clear each other out on page 2. Is that, are those TIF payments on like the residential development, or is that on the commercial buildings?
It's. Yeah. Yeah,
What's-
we fixed how they were posted, because they're posted incorrectly.
Okay, so that's basically a wash. And then when you go
Yes.
the next page, the Forge Inc., which is same, one and the same, it's a new name for Eagle View.
Mhm.
Then is that for the residential, or is that for like one of those commercial buildings?
I'm pretty sure it's residential from the last fiscal year. Last meeting, we had the ones with all the names corrected. That'll be put in for the payment that'll happen. next
Okay.
year. So yeah, I've
And-
already updated.
So that's, okay.
Yeah.
And then I got something else. I'm just gonna. And then moving on to the Nova Holdings, that previously was the owner of one of those commercial buildings on Chamber. It's changed hands. So I guess, does that rebate still going back to the original owner, or does that go back to the current owner? Because in the last meeting, one said Rickliffs, one said Kraus, because those 2 buildings are owned by those 2.
So I did have it on the paperwork for the current one, and we updated it. This is though, for where the payment was supposed to go for the last fiscal year, that we had to update the name.
Okay.
But it was approved last fall, like a year ago, under Nova. And then the payments had to be sent. We
Okay.
had 4 or 5 payments last fiscal year that were approved, submitted, we just never dispersed the funds. They came from
This
you.
is for a previous fiscal year when they own that.
Yes.
Okay,
we still
so-
do those funds.
Okay, so the payments are going back to, or go to the owner, basically. So like now next year, since it changed hands, it'll go to a different owner.
Correct.
Just like the Kraus building, it'll go to them.
Yes, yeah, and
And-
last council meeting, we had 4 of those on the
And
agenda
that-
for review and approval with the meeting.
Okay, and Fairway will be coming too for the
Yep.
TIF.
As long
Okay,
as they submit.
okay. Which I think it was in the last packet, last meeting.
Yeah. exactly. So
Okay. And then for select service for 600 or for $1,300 for the portable restrooms, where do we have those at? Do we have them like all year round? Or,
Is that for construction?
Parks and Rec.
Oh, that's
Like at the ball
for
fields?
The services.
yeah,
I think that's for the flag football, because the parents were having to walk a long way with the child to go get to the bathroom, so they temporarily put them up there. Flag football is over, so.
maybe this is a separate discussion, but I see we have on there Macamil. We took down a house that we now own on Davis Street. Do we have any plans to move that property, or maybe that's a different discussion?
We have 3 properties that the city purchased that have homes on them. This one was the worst that we did demo. As far as I'm aware, you guys haven't made any decisions what you want to do with it going forward yet. We want to let that settle because they just demoed it
Yeah,
through the winter. Usually what should happen for properties is is I can get a listing usually once a year of what the city owns for properties that aren't being used for park or anything else, or have a building on it, to see if you guys want to keep them, if you want to bid them out, if you want to, what we want to do for that. And then usually you get an appraisal done, whether it's a lot or a house on a lot. And then you potentially go out for bid, and the highest bidder potentially could get that property, and then we at least have a baseline. For property or land, say $5,000, we may not make $5,000 on a bid process, but at least we know where it lands for that. But that would be if they want to get rid of some resources. We'd have further discussion, I gather further information later on, what you guys want to do, because we may want to keep some properties for park later on, different things since we own them.
That's all.
Any other questions? We have a motion by Kay and second by Rich to pay the bills. Brandon, would you conduct the roll vote?
Stout,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Tukin,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Gobbert.
Yes.
Motion to approve payment carried unanimously. 8.0 City Administrators Report.
The only thing that's, you guys had a lot of information now that I've been dealing with from this meeting, but we did temporarily previously, due to low staffing in City Hall, close for lunch from 11:30 to 12:30. So now that we're back up to full staff, we're going to stagger the lunches, and as of November 2nd, we'll be open during lunch. So we can make a payment, do whatever they need to do at City Hall. We will be open. So just keep a heads up on that. We're making progress.
Also have any questions or comments from Sean? Thank you. 9.0 Mayor and Council's Report. 9.1 Mayor's Report. I have none. 9.2 Council Reports.
Well, I would like to give a thanks to Tom Durgan and Tyler Day for the power washing of some of the signs that were out there before Pumpkin Fest to clean them up. So thank you for that.
Anyone else? Thanks, Rich, for that. 10.0 Public comment for items not on the agenda.
Bergen, downtown property owner. I just want to make a comment for Eastern Iowa Excavating. I'm not, don't feel I've been directly impacted by them, but, and I think there's been some frustration with some of the people that work around, but I think they've done a really awesome job of keeping the streets nice, neat and clean, and the closures down to a minimum. It seemed like before Pumpkin Fest came around that they filled all the dips. They cleaned everything up. And I think it was pretty nice of them from my point of view, in my opinion, on how nice a job they did keeping everything, getting everything cleaned up and ready for Pumpkin Fest. And I also want to say that it seemed like a different atmosphere for Pumpkin Fest this year. I was downtown working Friday, and it was almost holiday-ish. It was a completely different atmosphere this year. And I don't know, Brooke might know, because I don't know who's on the committee or whatever, but it was different. It was, and then Saturday, I was downtown from 6 a.m. till about 10 o'clock, and the whole vibe was different. Watching everybody come in early in the morning, it just seemed like everything was so smooth, so nice. It was just, I just want to make a comment about that, because I thought it really went off very nice without a hitch, and everything was really cleaned up nice this year afterwards and before. So I just wanted to give a positive comment.
Yeah, I think we all agree that it was probably as smooth as it's ever been.
Yes.
Everything just went.
I like I said, I was downtown from 6 a.m. till, and and watching the people roll in and then the camaraderie and the helping. And then as the people started to roll in for the fact, it was a completely different, I think, very smooth. Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else? 11.0 adjournment. Tonight's meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Yep.
The other one's